I know you're thinking you know exactly what you need to do, but I guarantee you there are specifics in this video that you have not thought about. Hey everyone, I am Aubrey with Laura in Louisville. For those that don't know me, I have been selling real estate for the last decade in Louisville, Kentucky, and we are going to be talking today about what you need to be doing to get your house ready to sell for spring of 2026. It's the end of October right now. We are getting lots of phone calls for looking to list in the spring, and so we figured this would be a great opportunity to dive into what we are telling our sellers today. So we are going to start with the first thing that we tell our sellers is to go in your house and look where you can declutter. If your goal is to sell your house in the spring of next year, you're likely going to be packing up some boxes in the next 6 months. And so why not go ahead and start getting rid of stuff so the stuff that you're putting in those boxes are things that you actually want to take to your new home. We also recommend decluttering because when a buyer walks into a space, we want them to feel like there is room to grow. If you walk in and you see crammed closets and cabinets and pantries and garages and the basement is overflowing, that buyer is likely going to be thinking that that's going to be them in 5 years and that this house isn't actually going to be big enough because these sellers are already busting at the seam. So not only are you getting rid of things that you don't want anymore, you're also telling a future buyer that there's plenty of room here for them to grow. Now, I would look at starting in the basement, closet, and the garage. Those are the places that we tend to put things first. When you open up a closet door, you want to make sure that you can see the floor and that it looks like there's things that can still be added. So sometimes at the top of the shelves, we cram a lot of stuff up there, thin that out so it looks like another basket could be added or another box could be stuck up there. And on the floor, you don't want to see anything. And again, the goal is to make it appear, even though we know that's not always the case, that you're very organized, because when a buyer sees an organized house, they think it's the house that has made them organized and that this house is going to be able to help them do that. The next thing that we recommend is doing a deep clean. Now, we are not talking about just cleaning a bathtub here. You're going to use the winter months because you're going to be stuck inside for the next 60, 90, however many days winter is for us here in Louisville. You're going to use those months to deep clean. So when you open up your silverware drawer, you're taking all the silverware out and you're cleaning the entire drawer out. You're wiping down the insides of the cabinets. You're cleaning off the tops of the fans. You are getting in the corners on the baseboards. We did a survey not that long ago, and we asked our followers if they would rather have a clean, tidy, and well-maintained outdated house or a updated dirty house, and hands down everybody said they would much rather have a clean and outdated house. So we really want to make sure that your house, as people walk through it, they don't see fingerprints on the walls or on the frames or on the light switches, that when they open up a cabinet door, they open up the refrigerator, that sparkles and is super clean. Next thing we're going to look at is looking at just to neutralize the spaces. Remember, when a buyer walks in, you want them in a dream state, imagining themselves living in the house. So that does mean sometimes we have to take pictures and photos. If you've lived in your house for 30 years, you may have a hallway going upstairs or down the hall full of pictures. We're probably going to recommend that you take those off. And you may need to have a painter come in and spackle those holes and put a fresh coat of paint. A fresh coat of paint is never going to hurt anything, and it's by far the cheapest thing that you can do in your house. That may mean that we also need to neutralize some of the room colors. If you've got some outdated colors, maybe you've got a really bright red or what I call taste-specific colors that may have made you really happy, but we need to neutralize it so it can become a little bit more of a blank canvas for the buyer coming through the door. We'll recommend paint colors that we have our sellers paint, just again to create a neutral space. So depersonalizing it does make a difference. Again, we want them thinking about the house, not who you are and why you're moving, because you look so perfect, your family looks so great, why would you ever want to leave this great house? So we want to take that out of their heads, and then we want to neutralize it, almost create a blank canvas for them to get enough of a feel of the sense of the room, but they can imagine themselves being in it. Now, this time of year can also create an incredible opportunity because you definitely have time to do what we call a pre-home inspection. This is where you would bring in a home inspector, of course, that we always recommend. That way you're using somebody trusted and somebody that we know, and they would do a home inspection just like a buyer would do a home inspection. But instead of it happening after you've got under contract, you're doing this now so that if we need to get contractors in there, we need to get a handyman in there, we need to get a roofer in there, an electrician to button up some things that we would consider items of importance that would be relevant to a new buyer, you can get those things fixed. In fact, we had a seller that did this. They did the home inspection this time of year. They took the whole winter to button everything up. Without doubt, a neighbor found out that they were going to be listing their house. They asked if they could see the property. We set up a showing, but in this scenario, we were actually able to give them the home inspection report, and we gave them the list of everything that we repaired on that home inspection report. And these buyers took the house as is with no inspections because they felt comfortable with that. But most importantly, that may not happen in every scenario, but you as the seller, the second most stressful time when you're getting your house ready to sell and once it gets listed is the inspection window. So we're trying to minimize that stress. So if you've taken care of 75% of the things, or even 50% of the things that came up that would be big items, you can minimize the risk of the buyer walking after we've got under contract. Now, if the weather cooperates and you can work on the outside of your house, there's oftentimes things that we will recommend our sellers to do. Now, as we get a little bit closer, we'll probably work a little bit more on the landscaping, things like that. You don't want to necessarily replace bushes right now, but there are things, if the weather cooperates, that you can work on the outside. Everybody, or you may have heard that first impressions matter, and it does make a difference when a buyer is walking up to the front of the house. They're starting to evaluate the condition of the home at that point. And if their checklist has already grown before they even walked through the door, you've lost them from the beginning. So we want to make sure that that first impression really knocks their socks off. So we're looking, maybe the door needs to be painted in the front. Window frames may need to be touched up and painted. We've recommended having the windows cleaned. I would wait till we get a little bit closer to listing, but these are just little things that you can do. Cleaning up branches on trees if they're hanging over the roof, those kinds of things. Getting the gutters cleaned, actually cleaning the inside of the gutters, and sometimes power washing the outside of the gutters makes a difference. Sometimes you have one side of the house that gets mold on it because the sun never do it. Getting a company to come and power wash the house. Again, impressions matter, and we want them not even thinking about the house in a negative way as they first have walked up to it. One thing that you might not think about that we think is great is just updating the house numbers. You can get house numbers into maybe like a more modern next to the door, maybe even in the front yard. We've had a lot of positive feedback from folks that have seen the house that have appreciated seeing that. I have seen it time and time again where your dream house hits the market and then you have to cram. So consider this a gift to yourself, that you will start preparing this now so that 6 months from now, when we're putting a sign in the yard, your house is ready to go, as well as your sanity. So if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to like and subscribe, and please leave a comment below if there's something you'd like to see. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the neighborhood.